I want to go to our next speaker. Josh Little has an amazing career. He started his career out as a teacher, and then when I just talked to him and he figured out that being a teacher is a very nice and fulfilling job, but not one that could easily feed his family, he figured out his career to become one of the top performing salespersons to a serial entrepreneur who has built products for hundreds of millions of people. And he's currently building Volley, a social video app where he wants to bring this connections to the world, which is also our official conference video app that you can use. And he's going to share his wisdoms on how can you build products that users can't live without and that are going to stick like glue. Please welcome Josh on stage. Thank you so much.
Salut, Chevach. Thank you. I'm grateful to be here. I want to start by telling you a story about myself in 2009. This is me and my co-founder in 2009. This is the night before we launched Bloomfire into the world, my first software product that I'd ever built. I had just spent $500,000 of the first $500,000 that I ever made from the first $500,000 of profits, and we were about to launch Bloomfire into the world. And we had temporary tattoos, we had written a manifesto, we had the booth dialed tight, and we were about to launch Bloomfire into the world the next morning and learn a very big lesson about building products that stick, that users can't live without. Because I hadn't talked to a single customer at this point. Now since, don't get scared, since I've built several tech companies, had multiple exits, hundreds of millions of users, and what I would like to share today is a recipe to help you, the beginner, who is just getting started, who is just learning to build your tech product, or maybe you have a tech product and it's not being used like it should, or it's not sticking like it should, it's not growing like it should. This is for you today, and it's a very simple recipe, 5 steps to make glue for your product. Talk to users, study behavior, know your data, pursue the most impactful thing, and don't be afraid to move the boat. Let's unpack them. But first, let's dispel a myth that sticky products are born that way. Here are the most sticky products in the world, products that you know and love and can't stop using. And they didn't start that way. There's a process that each of them went through. Yes, they had a little nugget of product market fit in the beginning, and then they began building this process that I want to teach you today. So first, it's very simple. Talk to your users. But I want you to talk to them face to face. I know, right? That's scary. Why would you want to talk to your users face to face? What if they don't have something good to say about my product? Well, that's the point. That's why you need to talk to your users. I'll give you 3 ideas in the way that we do it at Volley. First, we use our product for support. It's a video messaging app, so we should use our product for support. If you join our product, if you download our product, you'll have a conversation with Mitch and Stephanie. And you can chat about the product and learn about how to use it or your use case from them. With that, we get great feedback from our users on what their experience was like, what they understand or don't understand in the beginning, and then as it evolves over time, what problems they run into. The second is community. So you could use Volley for this, for your community. We have face-to-face community with our users. We invite them in and we create community for our coaches, for our creators, for teams who are using it for collaboration. We bring them together to kind of share use cases with one another. We also run AMAs, and where we bring outside experts into the community where they can learn and have a great experience and teach the members of our community. So you could literally use Volley to do this with your customers. Download Volley, create a few channels, send the link to your customers, your favorite customers, and maybe some of your least favorite customers, and find out what they're thinking. And you might even want an engineer to be involved. Yes, over here on the right, that's a Volley engineer, and yes, engineers can talk to users. I don't know if you knew that here in Romania. Most US companies don't know that either, but yes, an engineer can talk to users. And then the third thing we do is usability testing, face-to-face usability testing. You would not believe the number of people that are willing to try your crappy product for $30 of an Amazon gift card. That's the trick. We send out a little survey. Who wants to try our product? Who wants to do a usability test? We have hundreds of people lined up to want to try Volley, and so every once in a little while, we'll grab a few more, and we'll test this. We'll launch a new feature. We'll run a usability test on this. Again, face-to-face talking with your users. And then I have two ways that you can talk with users and get quantitative feedback. First is what I call a why did you stop survey. This is so simple. It's not a survey. It's an email from me to a churned user, and I just have one question. Here's the text I send, and I just ask, why did you stop using Volley? And that's all I want to know. And I tend to get a really great response rate, like 20 or 30% response rate to these emails, because people are generally, they want to be helpful. They want to let you know they tried your product, and if you approach them, please shoot me straight. I can handle the truth, and they do. And why, you're probably saying, why is this quantitative? Well, because I take all of the responses, and I'll throw them in a spreadsheet, and I'll tick mark each of the items that they mention. And as you receive a bunch of these, you'll see a pattern over time of what are the problems, what were the points of friction, what things could we remove that makes our product slippery that would make it more sticky for the future, right? And then the second is a must-have survey. We want to know, how disappointed would you be if Volley disappeared tomorrow? And the gold standard here is about 25%. If 25% of your users say that they would be very disappointed, then you have, at least according to Sean Ellis, product market fit. And you can see this is a survey we did early on with our product. 24, we were getting close, right? All right, now that you've talked to your users, I want to tell you a little bit of truth. Sometimes they lie. So you have to study behavior. So you can't just talk to your users, take that as gospel. You have to also watch what they do. And there's a few things that you're going to want to watch. So the first key here is that you study behavior more than money, because in the early days of a startup especially, your money chart can look like this. It's going up and to the right, and everything is good. We're making money. We're making more money last month than we did this month than we did last month. It's working, right? Well, that depends. What does your behavior chart look like? Because a lot of times you'll have a behavior chart that looks like this. Story time, back to Bloomfire. Bloomfire is my second company. This is the one where I launched and hadn't talked to a single user. Well, turns out that's not a good idea because we had many users who were interested. The idea was cool enough, being able to share knowledge with one another. And eventually, Bloomfire, we figured out the stickiness, and we're able to take that and create the category of knowledge management and go through a couple of great exits with the company. But in the early days, people would renew even though they hadn't used the product yet. And why this is a trap is because even though your money chart is going up and it looks like your revenue is increasing over month, that's soon going to end, and you're going to hit a ceiling if the behavior doesn't back it up. So that's why I say study behavior more than money. Make sure that people are using it. Make sure that there is a fundamental need that they're solving, and this product is sticky. This is what your behavior chart should look like, something like this. This is a recent cohort of users on Volley, 91.7% at week 12. You want that chart to run high, and you want to, if possible, you want that chart to smile back at you. If you have a chart that has a nice high smile, that's a good thing. The other thing, and that's retention, the other thing you want to look at is DAO, WOW, and MAU. If you've not heard those terms, that's daily active users, weekly active users, and monthly active users. And you want to look at these as a percentage, the percentage of your monthly active users that are weekly and daily active users. And again, you want those charts to be high. Andrew Chen, kind of one of the godfathers of growth, says that if you have a daily active user that is 25% or greater, you should email him. So here we have 46, which is a good thing. And the other thing, you want to be running experience and make sure that your sparkline graph is increasing over time. The things that you're doing to add to the product, build to the product, should make it more sticky not less, right? Which brings me to knowing your data, which I'm starting to get in here. You should know your data inside and out. I couldn't decide on a GIF for this slide, so I have two for you. Look at whatever one makes you happier. They make me equally as happy. And if you're not really sure what data to know or why, let me give you a starting point. There's this framework called the R framework, or the Pirate framework: acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. This is a stack, a funnel of your customer journey from when you acquire them to when they pay you, right? And the key is to start right in the middle of this chart. When you first build a product, maybe you're monetized, maybe you're not, to start right at the middle in retention. Again, behavior, not money necessarily. So focus here on retention, and your goal is to find some correlation between activity in your app and retention. What do people do that causes them to retain? And we looked at a number of things with Volley. We tried to see, well, is it like how many connections, how many conversations they're at, or is it like Facebook's 7 friends in 10 days, or 10 friends in 7 days, or whatever that was. None of those were correlated for us. It was kind of no correlation between the number of conversations or number of connections. For us, it was all about sending and receiving volleys. A volley is a video message in Volley. You can also send text volleys and file volleys and voice volleys, but 55% of volleys are video volleys, so that's why it's a video messaging product. And if you look at this curve, there's a nice shoulder to it, which means the number of volleys that are sent, as you send more, you tend to retain. Someone who sends who views 100 volleys retains at about 70%. Someone who creates 100 volleys retains at about 82%. But if you look at that shoulder, you're interested in the point on the shoulder where there's an inflection point, where it starts to flatten. That's the point to focus for retention. For us, that's about 20 volleys. We know if you send 20 volleys, you're probably going to send 100, which means you'll probably send 1,000, and you'll keep going. So what should we do if we want somebody to send 20 volleys? Well, we should get them to send 1 volley. That would be great. And that is what we call an aha moment. We found, actually, the aha moment isn't sending a volley. It's actually receiving a volley, that dopamine hit, that serotonin, from receiving a volley from something you sent. So if you send a volley, that's great. You close the app. It's really when you get that push notification and someone sends you a volley. And then you're like, aha, I get it. Oh, the richness of talking, the flexibility of texting. Oh, yes, I love it. This is beautiful, right? So that's the aha moment. To know your data, you need to find those 2 points. Focus on retention, figure out what correlates, what drives that retention, and then secondly, figure out what activates someone, what gets someone to get to some aha moment in the product where they'll continue to use it and use it and use it. And fourth, hello? Come on, let's start over. No. Fourth ingredient to this recipe is once you've studied your user, once you know your behavior, once you've know data, study behavior, then you relentlessly pursue whatever is the most impactful thing, because you're going to have 1,000 things you could do after you do those first 3 steps, right? So what does that look like? Well, Jason Fried and DAHH would say, well, when a user tells you something, just write it on a piece of paper and throw it away, because you're going to know, right? So that's one method. I don't subscribe to that method. I tend to be a little more obsessive about things, but you could, and you're right. You're going to hear over and over and over the most important things. You won't be able to forget them, right? That's the point. But what we do is we collect those ideas, and we have a rubric that we allow to help us decide what is the most important thing. Now, everyone can contribute to this. This is all of the ideas, and we use a spreadsheet because I know there's a lot of tools, but just the data density that we can get and the flexibility with the spreadsheet, we appreciate that. And engineers, by the way, also add ideas to this list. Now, the key is this part at the top. This is how we grade things. So we create a rubric, both divided by impact and effort. So on impact, we have a column called DAW, another acquisition, activation, and retention. So we're interested in driving those things. And then each item, each experiment or feature that we would build has a grade underneath it. And each, as you see right below those columns, each of them are weighted. So we use this weighting not to totally dictate a roadmap, but to help us have an objective conversation about what we could do with the product. And there are thousands of things, and there's a blue column at the bottom there. Those are all on ice. Those are good ideas. We're just not going to get to them in the next 3 months. So we're only interested in what we could do in the next 3 months that would move the needle as far as impact, and then we grade it on effort, and that is a subtractive. So impact and effort balance each other. That gives us a grade to get us in the ballpark and give us an idea. What are the most impactful things we could do with this product quickly? That's how we relentlessly pursue the most impactful thing. However you do it, all I say is to do it. And then fifth ingredient is don't be afraid to move the boat. There was once a marketing professor that asked his students on the first day of class, if you had a hot dog stand and you could choose one competitive advantage, what would you choose? So think about that for a minute right now. What would you choose? And you're probably thinking things like softest bun, or best looking, cleanest stand, best marketing, tastiest hot dog, cheapest, right? So he waited for the class to kind of give all of their answers, and once it settled down, he said, a starving crowd. And if you want a competitive advantage, what you want is a starving crowd. You want a line at your hot dog stand, people that are so hungry that they will bite any hot dog and pay any price for that hot dog, even if it's terrible, if you have terrible marketing. That is what you want, a starving crowd. And a lot of times, that doesn't happen where you're currently focused. So I'm going to use an analogy here. Don't be afraid to move the boat. This is a fishing analogy. Not sure how popular fishing is here, but where I grew up in the U.S., it is a popular thing. And a lot of times, you can have more success with your product more success fishing instead of staying in the same spot, trying different bait, trying the bait, just saying, well, maybe they'd like this. Maybe they'll bite on worms. Well, maybe they'll bite on lures. If you try different bait, you may not eventually be, if the fish aren't hungry there, they just won't bite. So a lot of times when you have to move the boat, it feels like it takes time. You've got to pull up the anchor. You've got to put the chips away, put the poles down, and move. But then you realize 5 minutes later, you're in a new spot, and the fish are biting here. And they'd probably bite on an empty hook if you put it in the water. So this happened to me with Quizzer. We built a quiz tool. This was after Bloomfire, after Maestro. Quizzer was my first software product. We built a quiz tool for teachers and trainers. As Philip said, I'm a former teacher. I know teachers. I know what they want. They want the world's simplest quiz tool. What if we built a quiz tool that allowed you to create quizzes and embed them in your website? Wouldn't that be great? Teachers will use it. Trainers will use it. They're going to love it. So we built that. And I had talked to users this time, right? But once we got the product in market, it was kind of fair weather. They were giving it blank stares. And then we had a publisher take one of those quizzes and embed them in their website. And it blew up. And it was the biggest article of the year for that publisher. And they called us the next day, and they're like, do you know what you have? And we're like, well, we know you crashed our servers yesterday, so we think we know what we have. But they're like, oh, you have a quiz tool for publishers. So we moved the boat. We pivoted to another focus, same product, almost exactly the same product, actually fewer features than what we had existing, a quiz tool for publishers. And after that, it started to grow. And within a year, we had 200 million visitors a month, 200,000 users, monthly active users who were creating quizzes for 200 million visitors, and it was an identical product. So, I have the wrong title on this slide. Look at me with bad slide hygiene. Sorry, I'll fix that later. But you want to, don't be afraid to move the boat. If the fish aren't biting where you are, if users aren't using the product as intended, and you're doing your best to study their behavior, relentlessly pursue the most impactful thing, and know your data, it may not be your process or your product. It may just be those users aren't hungry. So go find your starving crowd, and you'll most likely find success there. And if you do, if you talk to users, you study their behavior more than money, you know your data inside out, pursue the most impactful thing, and don't be afraid to move the boat, I know that you will find yourself in a place with a sticky product. And that's my finale with 4 gifts at the end for you. You can choose which one of those you like best. But I'm grateful to be here. Mulțumesc. You can reach me on Volley. Volley is, as Philip said, the video messaging app for the conference. So you can go back to the email, the Volley space. You can join the Volley space. If you right-click on one of my Volleys, you can talk to Josh. And I'd love to talk to you, especially if you're a React engineer. #always be recruiting. Mulțumesc.